So, out of the fortune, there is another protest that is about to happen. And this protest is going to happen during the State of the Union. So, if the Capitol is girding for potential Freedom Convoy protest at the State of the Union speech, and this is when Biden he's going to speak. And so this is by a Zach Cohen and a Billy House and Bloomberg. So this Freedom Convoy protest has spread to multiple places. So I believe it originated in Canada, and it was here in Los Angeles County recently around the Super Bowl event, and now is approaching March 1st, the State of the Union speech from the president. So it says the U.S. Capitol are preparing for a possible protest by the convoy of truckers arriving in Washington around the date of President Joe Biden's State of the Union address. So in a statement on Friday, the Capitol Police said that local, state, federal law enforcement agencies, as well as the District of Columbia National Guard, are aware of the plans for a series of truck convoys arriving in the city around the time that Biden's March 1st address and are coordinating security plans. So they are preparing. So they've already started putting fencing up because of that incident that happened January the 6th, of course. So I guess they don't want to have a repeat or maybe something worse. But the fencing that they're putting up, I don't know. We don't know how many are going to show up for this protest and how this is going to turn out. So it's a thing of wait and see. So Capitol Police officials briefed congressional staff on the status of those plans on Friday afternoon. So truck drivers and other protesting vaccine requirements. Others, they're protesting the vaccine requirements and other public health measures during COVID-19 pandemic, and that have snarled the Canadian capital of Ottawa for 3 weeks. So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has invoked emergency powers in an attempt to quell the protest, and police have worked to clear the streets of the protesters as well. So there have been streets that have been blocked during these particular protest events. So one of the officials familiar with the briefing said that there was real concern, so Washington could be the site of a similar protest in the coming weeks very soon. So security officials could easily monitor and prepare for the trucker movements from outside the metro area. So the officials said this, but they implied that they would have a harder time doing so if people from the Washington area joined in. So at least one group purporting to be organizing as Convoy is raising money on the web for a cross-country protest as well, beginning in California is where they want to start. So the Capitol remains closed to the public because of this pandemic still. So security barricades are erected after January the 6th, 2021 insurrection have come down. Those are not there anymore, and both chambers of the Congress are in recess until February the 28th. But authorities will likely be on high alert when Biden is scheduled to deliver his State of the Union address to a joint Congress session of Congress. So trucks and vans are prohibited from entering the area around the Capitol complex without a delivery company or drivers having letters on file with the Capitol Police. So tickets to attend the speech in the House chamber will be limited to members of Congress. And some staffers and media attendees must remain fully masked. Officials announced this on Thursday, so the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department is aware of the potential First Amendment activities, but no application had been submitted to the department, said spokesperson Elaine Gertz. So as with all First Amendment demonstrations, MP will be monitoring and assessing and planning according with our local, state, and federal partners. Gertz said, we have increased available resources, including activation of our civil disturbance units as well, in preparation for these activities that come up. So they are preparing for this convoy that is supposed to happen. So you can see on the side to my right, or I believe to your right, there's other articles that are related to this Freedom Convoy protest. So Canada's Freedom Convoy has shut down Ottawa and is blocking 500 million daily in cross-border trade. And so that was an issue. And so Canada's Prime Minister Trudeau, um, he invoked an emergency act to fight Freedom Convoy protests, and he's using those powers, and those articles are related. Freedom Convoy protests could swarm the Super Bowl, which that did happen. They did show up. Some people that I know said they saw them, and it warns of Canada's anti-vax movement that is crossing the country. So there's a whole lot of articles that are coming about this Freedom Convoy, and so I think people should pay attention to this, because they are about anti-vax, anti-mask, and what's scary about some of this is that I believe, from what I've heard through people who are very familiar with this group and how it was organized, that has some people that are a part of another group called QAnon. And so I believe they have kind of been involved with the Freedom Convoy as well, protests. So we will see what happens March the 1st, how that will turn out, and see if it is a worse than January 6th, or if it's not really going to make too much of a, you know, well, they'll make themselves known. Of course, they already have made themselves known, but maybe because of the situation that already happened January the 6th, maybe things will be a lot different. So however, it's a wait and see game on that issue. But this is pretty serious, because I don't believe they're the only group that's going to come about, and being it shows that the pandemic is not really over. And a lot of people want it to be over. They want to rush for it to end. And, I really want it to end, honestly. I wish it never came about. I wish we never had to go through any of the things that we've experienced, because it has caused a lot of social divide. It's caused a great deal of harm to people. People have died. People have gotten sick. People have gotten frustrated or enraged, and they've done things that they probably normally wouldn't do had there not have been any of this pandemic. It has caused people to get evicted, lose their jobs through all of this. And now this is the end of this article. I'm done with it, but relate in relation to the article and what I've learned, and I always try to relate it back to some of the experience, some of the things that I've seen here, even in the LA area, which are probably similar all around. Their schools are still struggling to stay open. They've had a lot of teachers that have either gotten sick, or they're not coming into work. They're strained in working. What I've noticed about schools is that there's testing every week, and some schools, depending on the outbreaks, if they happen more often at one school, they happen in pockets, or they happen with multiple students that don't have vaccination. Usually what ends up happening, they close the school for a while. They reopen when everybody is clear, and they're COVID free, or at least the viral load is down low enough that it's safe enough for them to reopen schools. But what I've noticed is they have a shortage on all of the staff at these schools. The schools are in a lot of trouble. And it's not just the schools that I found that are in a lot of trouble. There are other jobs that you'll still see hiring signs all over the place. People come in, they work for a while, and they get sick and they leave, or something doesn't work out, and then they can't hold staff for very long because of pay. People are struggling to stay housed. That's what's been happening here in LA County. I've noticed there's still evictions going on, illegal evictions. Some people have struggled to try to pay their rent. They have tried to struggle to keep a roof over their head and maybe to buy food. Gas has gone up significantly. Food prices have gone up. Everything seems to have skyrocketed. Rent relief programs, I believe, are still available, but they're very slow to move, slow to act. I believe the moratorium has been extended. However, the fear that people still have is real, of either getting sick and losing their job, or either not being able to pay their bills because of being sick and having to take days off. Um, so that kind of interferes with a lot of things with your money on trying to be able to secure a place to stay. With all that's going on, there's a lot of pressure to come up with rent, back rent, even though there are still some protections in place, but it's not always guaranteed that you're gonna be working if you're gonna end up sick. And people are risking going to work sick, and that means if you go to work sick, you might give the disease to other people, and then they will face the same fate. And so that has what has been happening. What I've noticed, a lot of strain on people who are trying to stay afloat. And so it's been really sad to see, families suffering, people just suffering. You don't see people as you know, optimistic about all of this. It's created a lot of divide. People have kind of distanced themselves from others that have certain beliefs on vaccines, masks, mandates. There's a class issue definitely going on. You have some people who have done significantly well during this trying time. What I've noticed here alone in LA County and LA and South LA, just around, there's been a lot of building going on. So we had this crisis of housing and homelessness, the housing crisis, the homeless crisis. There's multiple crises going on. So what has happened is you've got building going on, but yes, they're building more apartments, more units for people to be able to possibly live in, but are they going to be affordable? That is the question that remains to be seen. Unfortunately, what we've noticed is over the years there's been a lot of improvements, but the improvements don't include people with low income or people who don't make enough money. And so people end up getting displaced from places that maybe they've been for maybe a number of years. Some families have lived maybe most of their, kids have lived most of their life there. And so they end up having to move further out, or they end up having to move to a smaller place, or move out of the city entirely. And that is heartbreaking because the jobs tend to be the schools that people use, are the frequent every day, other than days off out of the week. Those are the places that they're leaving behind. And it's like you have to pick up and start all over again somewhere else, and it's not guaranteed that the pay and the living is going to be anywhere the same as it once was, because this Gentrification has a lot to do with it. They say that some people will fight against the issue. There's different opinions. People say, well, gentrification doesn't have to be a bad thing. However, it isn't always a great thing to displace families and to make things so unaffordable that people have to move or feel forced that they have to leave. Um, it's not a decision that you chose, it's a decision that was forced upon you. And so that's what makes it not a good situation at all. And so that's what I've noticed that's been happening here in and around LA County. And so they did have a lot of laws that were old and outdated, zoning laws where you couldn't build certain housing. Now that they've kind of freed up some of that, the question is that housing, now that they're going to build some more housing units, is it going to be affordable? And so that's what people have been looking at. And a lot of the apartments that they've built thus far have been extremely high, where it's been more than $2,000, more than $3,000 a month, and it may not even be a 2 bedroom. So you can very well see it's hard to have your family squeeze into a small apartment and have to pay a lot of money, and you don't have the space, and you're paying for things that you're probably not going to even really use because you're at work most of the week. So a lot of people too see that there's some places that they maybe made a few upgrades, but not too much different a community or neighborhood, but you're paying money as if, they've tore down the whole building and revamped the building and made a whole brand new building. And that's not what's going on. It's just maybe they fix a few things here and there, put some paint on the building, and then they add luxury condo or unit or whatever, and then all of a sudden the rent goes up to like maybe $3,000 a month, and it's not even a 2 bedroom. So there are situations that are crazy like that right now. So that's what's happened. I know this is about this trucker protest, but most of the people, when you look at these people at these particular protests, like January 6th, and I know there were some people of color, but there were like sprinkles of people of color. Primarily, most of the people were white, and with this trucker convoy, it's very similar. The only thing is that they're a trucker convoy. And now I believe they said that they may have QAnon people that are involved in this particular protest, which I believe they were also involved in the January 6th protest, because you saw the signs. If you were looking at some of the video of the footage of that January 6th insurrection, you can see the signs, the protest signs, or the signs that was supposed to symbolize a protest, but was really like an insurrection, more so from the activity that ensued behind it. It was supposed to be a protest, but it turned to more like an insurrection because it became really violent. So that is the reason why this protest right here is coming up, that they're watching for what activities are going to come out of this. What's scary also is that I've noticed that over the years, you didn't see this many protests happening back to back. But I believe since this protests are happening so often, is because you have this pandemic. And, here they've also tried to lift or loosen some of the protocols or the rules of safety, where you can wear a mask indoors, but outdoors you can free yourself up from wearing a mask. And there's still some limitations on certain places, what you can and cannot do. Now, do I feel safe with that? Not really, because there has been people that I've known, there's other people that I've run into who have gotten infected. Um, and maybe gotten infected more than once. And some of those people have been vaccinated. And that's the scary part. So that's the reason why I could say that I believe this pandemic is not over with. It is just starting. We had a test run from the Omicron and all of that. I believe that is the marker of something else worse to come. It has learned how we thrive in a society or as a society. You have some that are vaccinated, others that aren't, some that'll wear protection masks, and others that don't. People have different beliefs. I believe that will be our demise because there's more variants that are out and they're spreading. It started in Denmark when they lifted all of their requirements in terms of safety protocols for COVID. And so once they lifted it, then the numbers of cases of people getting infected started to rise once again, but rise with a vengeance. And so I believe that is what is coming. And it's already started in certain places, and it's going to start in pockets and waves. And this the next variants, I don't believe are going to be that kind to us, to where you can just get a shot and then that will secure your safety. So I believe the next ones are going to be pretty lethal because of the fact that it's gotten time to learn us, our bodies, and what it can get past to infect us. And so some people are going to be able to, even with all of that, some people are be able to thrive in that craziness, while others might succumb to it, unfortunately. And so it's just like the others that have happened. And I believe it's going to go on like this for quite a long time because of the political differences that we have as a country. So, anyway, with that being said, once again, this is coming up, and we shall see how this turns out, if it's any worse than January 6th, which I wouldn't be surprised if it is any worse. Because from what I got from January 6th insurrection is that you see these people and they're right here, they're Americans, and they're able to get to the Capitol, they're able to get into the building and get past security. And so that is a big red flag, many red flags. And what it says is that if you have people that are right here, they're able to do what we saw January 6th in there. Where's the safety? And then, we had all these people talking about terrorism from abroad and people from outside of the country coming in and doing something horrible when you have people right here in our country and you have homegrown terrorism and you have people that are right here that are peddling their conspiracy theories, and they're able to get a following. Just even on social media, people are able to get like large numbers of people to gather together to infiltrate the Capitol building, to go in and to break in with very little effort, I should say. It looked like it took a large crowd, but they were able to get in and do the damage that was done. So we shall see how this one turns out. We shall see.